Hello and welcome to Chapter 2, Fractions, and this is a difficult chapter, so we have a lot of videos to get through to cover all this material. Just like I said in class, when you're going through these notes, please take your time, hit pause as necessary, and get the notes down if that works for you. And if you know how to do something, skip it, do it, go at your own pace. But the main thing is that you get this done, and then get your homework done, and you come in, you're ready for the test. Now we have a few weeks to work on fractions because it's hard, and this is all no calculator stuff that we'll be working on. But it would be a good thing to have your calculator available and start practicing how to do fractions on your calculator, and that I'll go over in class with you. So let's get right into things here as we begin Chapter 2. You might note that at the top of your notes, you will see that, whoops, I went forward and I wasn't supposed to go forward. I'm trying to change my pen color here, and I'm going to do that now. You'll notice at the top of your page in your notes it says, I believe it says 2-1 to 2-4. That really should just say Chapter 2. All the notes that you have, it's the entire chapter that we'll be working through through the course of several videos here for fractions. So now we can go on to that next slide. And this is a review slide from last week, actually. The word factor, that's an important one for you. If I had the problem 4 times 3, you need to know that 4 and 3 are factors of 12. 4 times 3 is 12. Since 3 and 4 are both divisible by 12, or they've multiplied to get 12, those are the factors. And you'll need to know that word. That's a tricky one because when we learn multiples, it gets a little bit confused. Okay, well, let's look at some questions that you might see similar to your homework. And here's one that says, well, determine whether the second number is a factor of the first. So I'm looking at this and I'm asking myself, well, can I take 8 times something and end up with 72? That's one way to look at that question. And we can. We can, because the answer to that would be, let's go. There we go. 9 times 8. 9 times 8 is 72. So it goes into 72, therefore it is a factor. That is a yes answer to that. And here's why. 9 times 8 is 72, therefore 8 is a factor of 72, and so is 9. Okay, then we get to a question like this where it says, well, find all the factors of 24. Now this is an interesting one to work out here. Here's how I would go about solving this problem. I'm asking myself, what can I multiply and end up with 24 as a result? Well, one thing I can do is I can go 1 times 24. So here's what I like to do. I like to write the 1 down and then the 24. Those are both factors of 24. So whenever you're finding the factors of something, you know 1 is a factor, and then so is the number that you're talking about, because they multiply to get that number. And I separate them out like this, and then I just start counting up, and then I ask myself, well, 2, the next factor of 24 would be what? Well, I just count up to 2, and I ask myself, is 2 a factor of 24? And it is, because 2 goes into 24. I might see, since that's even, I know that 2 goes into it. Then I ask myself, 2 times what is 24? Well, 2 times 12 is 24. Therefore, 12 is also a factor of 24. And then you just continue counting up from there. If I do the same thing, I go to 3. 3 times something, is that 24? Well, I believe 3 times 8 is 24. Okay, let's keep going. How about 4? 4 times 6 is 24. Okay, the only number I guess I haven't covered would be 5, and 5 won't go into 24. You might note that since that's not a 5 or a 0, you've covered it. And so you see what happens is you've ended up with all the factors of 24. I'm going to have them pop up on the screen here again. There they are. When you put these in your homework in My Math Lab, it's important that you input the commas. It's also important that you do not put a comma after your last number in My Math Lab, because it'll think that you're suggesting there's another answer to follow it, and with nothing there, it'll think you're saying 0 is a factor, so it'll count that wrong. Okay, so when you input those numbers in My Math Lab, input it just like that, where you have each factor and then the commas separating them like that. Let's look at another example here of 45. If we did the same thing, I would say 1 and 45 They're my bookends, right? 1 and 45. And then I just continue counting up. Well, how about 3? 3 will go into it, and then so will a couple other numbers, 9, 5, 9, and 15. Okay, so I would have said 1 times 45, those two, 3 times 15, and 5 times 9, and all of a sudden you have all the factors there. Just listing them out just like we did in the previous question. Again, input those in the homework, and do not put a comma at the end there when you're listing those numbers in My Math Lab. But those are factors, and hopefully that will help you work through those questions in the start of chapter 2. So that takes us to this next word, multiple, and here's where it starts to get a little bit confusing with what a factor is. You see, a multiple, that's the resulting product of a number. Like in this question, 12 is the multiple of 4 and 3. So if I asked you, is 12 a multiple of 3? You'd say yes. Is 12 a multiple of 4? You'd say yes, because they can be multiplied and end up with 12. So a multiple, you can multiply to get a multiple, if that helps you there. So you might get some questions that look like this. It says, well, show that 45 and 100 are multiples of 5. So all you really have to do here is show that you can multiply 5 times something and end up with 45. Like that. 9 times 5. 45. Therefore, 45 is a multiple of 5. Okay? Or I could say 20 times 5 is 100. Therefore, 100 is a multiple of 5. It's also a multiple of 20 from what's on the screen, but it's a multiple of 5 as far as answering that question correctly. So then we get into some questions in your homework. You have to be able to list multiples. So they do that this way in our book. They say, well, multiply by 1, 2, 3, and so on to show the first 5 multiples of 6. Okay, so there's our first one. Basically what you're doing here is you're saying, well, what's the first thing that multiplies to get 6? No decimals or fractions are allowed in this, no negative numbers. 6 times 1 is 6. Okay, therefore, 6 is the first multiple of 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 is the next multiple. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4, 6 times 5 is 30. And 6 times 6 is 36. I gave you 6 multiples there, didn't I? I only asked for 5. And there I have listed, it looks like I have listed 6. Again, only asked for 5 in the question. But again, note how they're listed with commas and no comma after the last multiple that's listed there. So one thing you'll notice on the 20 by 20 sheet that I gave you in class, I'll point this out when I see you, but if you just go across, if you find the 6 there and go across, you're going to see those are multiples: 6, 12, 18, 24, 6 times 1, 6, 6 times 2, 12. It's listed on that chart. So get familiar with how we can use that chart for things other than just doing multiplication there for you. So we are at 8:25, and that's actually not a bad place to stop this video. So I'm going to stop this one and pick up with the next one here for you. So again, study what you know and study what you don't know and get it mastered, and hopefully it works out for you well.